Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate all the testimony of the witnesses, particularly the written testimony. Mr. Mueller, I very much appreciate you going through in detail much of the existing regulation. I wanted to refer first to Ms. Keel's examples that were raised during both your testimony today and in your written statements. With regard to several proxy proposals relating to things like reproductive rights, geopolitical issues in China, gun sale regulation, Bitcoin investment, how many of those were actually adopted?
I don't have the exact passage rates, but I'm guessing
Were any
none
of them?
That's my guess, yes.
Okay, so none of them were,
Correct.
to your knowledge, were actually approved. And in fact, there are criteria that exist already, exclude proposals like these most prominently that are relating to economic relevance under 14A8, I5, ordinary business that can mitigate micromanaging and so forth. And so I certainly appreciate that there is time expended, and I think that issue has been raised and a lot of resources expended. But fundamentally, the rules already exist to exclude many irrelevant proxy proposals. And in fact, the SEC appears to uphold management's decision to exclude them 68% of the time, according to Mr. Lander. So help me understand better what we're doing here. If the rules exist, why should Congress get involved if rules already exist to exclude irrelevant proposals?
So happy to take that one. You know, it's not required to go to the SEC for no action relief, but it's become the thing that companies do. And so to deviate from that, there's even an example from a long time ago before my time where a company said, I'm just going to notify the SEC of an exclusion. And the SEC said, you know, you've got to go through the normal process, even though it's not required and even though it's just guidance, it's not law. But there's this feeling among public companies that you don't want to rock the boat, right? It's not, it can be intimidating to make headlines. It can be intimidating to instigate scrutiny from the proxy advisors because the stakes are so high. So they will just fall back on this, you know, reliance on this system because, you know, that's what people are used to, and the alternative is the unknown is too scary.
I can appreciate the point. I've been in public life for a long time. It's just the fact that executives are uncomfortable doesn't feel like that's enough to justify congressional action here. And I guess what I'm particularly concerned about, Mr. Miller, I appreciate very much both your and Ms. Keel's excellent written statements, but what I'm particularly concerned about is narrowing the definition of relevance to the point where very relevant considerations would be included. For example, on page 14 of your written statement, you refer to the proxy proposal requesting JP Morgan Chase to disclose clean energy supply financing ratios. That is the financing of energy generation and renewables versus fossil fuels. Now, I know there's a wide variety of opinions here about climate change in this room and perhaps in America, but don't you agree that it would be critical for a lot of investors to understand how JP Morgan's executives have internalized the litigation risks, the regulatory risks, the long-term risks of how it's deciding to finance energy investments?
Sure. The issue on that is that, and I cannot comment on what JP Morgan was doing, but many of the other banks were already disclosing information about what they were doing with financing fossil fuel and non-carbon energy sources. And so the proposal was not so much about, hey, let's increase the disclosure. It was like the proposal was, we want you to do it this way, not the way that management thinks it's best to communicate with the shareholders.
Okay. So you don't disagree that disclosure itself may be quite relevant in that context? Because after all, BlackRock, in its 2021 Global Insurance Report, consulted 362 insurance company executives, and 95% of them confirmed the climate risk would have a significant impact on their portfolio construction over the next 2 years. So this is a relevant consideration, is that right?
Yes.
It is. Okay. I just want to make sure here in Congress, we don't decide to start excluding very relevant considerations from whatever we define to be appropriate proxy proposals.
I think the issue is what is relevant, and when under slab 14L in the Gensler administration, the first year that came out, only
Gentleman's time has
35%
expired.
of the proposals were excluded.
Thank you.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania,